The quantum sensors aboard the UES Hawking weren't supposed to detect anything this far out in the Kuiper belt. Dr. Maya Patel had developed the experimental array herself, designed to study the quantum fluctuations in deep space. But now, as she stared at the readouts flooding her holographic display, her hands trembled. "Captain Morrison," she called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "You need to see this." The readings showed something impossible. A massive quantum field, structured and controlled, moving through space at sublight speeds. It wasn't random noise or a sensor malfunction. It was a signal, a deliberate one. Captain James Morrison crossed the bridge in 3 quick strides. The veteran explorer had seen his share of anomalies during his 15 years commanding deep space research vessels, but the look on Dr. Patel's face told him this was different. "Talk to me, Doctor. It's like nothing we've ever seen, Captain. The quantum field is maintaining coherence at a macro scale. That shouldn't be possible in normal space. But more than that, she manipulated the holographic display, expanding a particular set of readings. There's a pattern to it, almost like what? Like a heartbeat." Before Morrison could respond, the ship's AI, interrupted. "Captain, detecting multiple objects decloaking at bearing 047 Mark 015. Range, 300,000 kilometers." The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the void seemed to ripple, and 7 massive vessels shimmered into existence. Their hulls appeared to be made of crystalline matrices that pulsed with internal light, each nearly twice the size of the Hawking. But what caught Morrison's attention wasn't their size or their impossible construction. It was the way they moved. The ships listed slightly, their formations uneven, like wounded animals struggling to maintain their course. "Are they scanning us?" Morrison asked. "No, sir," Lieutenant Sarah Chen replied from Tactical. "But they're broadcasting. Wideband transmission, multiple frequencies. It's in English." The message that played through the bridge speakers was unlike anything they'd ever heard. It wasn't speech, exactly, but rather a symphony of harmonics that somehow formed words in their minds. "We are the Selenari. We carry death within us. Please, stay away." Dr. Patel's quantum sensors told a deeper story. The massive quantum fields she detected weren't weapons or shields. They were containment systems, desperately trying to hold something at bay. And they were failing. "They're dying," she whispered, understanding flooding through her. "Their entire civilization. They're using quantum fields to try to contain some kind of plague. But the containment is breaking down." Morrison studied the alien vessels for a long moment. First contact protocols were clear. Unknown contagions meant immediate quarantine procedures. The safest course of action would be to report their position and withdraw to a safe distance. But as he watched the struggling ships, he saw something in their erratic movements that spoke of desperation, of hope nearly exhausted. He made his decision. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies." The comm officer complied, and Morrison spoke with the clarity of someone who understood they were making history. "Selenari vessels, this is Captain James Morrison of the United Earth Ship Hawking. We understand you're in distress. We want to help." The response came instantly, the harmonic voice tinged with what might have been surprise or fear. "You cannot help. The quantum plague we carry destroys all it touches. We have searched for centuries for a cure. Dozens of civilizations have tried. All have failed." Dr. Patel stepped forward, her eyes bright with sudden inspiration. "Captain," she said, "our quantum computing systems, they're different from anything else in known space. We deliberately kept them primitive, using controlled uncertainty instead of trying to achieve perfect coherence. What if that's exactly what we need?" Morrison nodded slowly, understanding. Where other civilizations might have pursued quantum perfection, humans had learned to work with quantum uncertainty, to use it rather than try to eliminate it. Sometimes the best solutions came from embracing imperfection. "Selenary vessels," he broadcast again. "We may have an approach no one has tried before. Request permission to share our quantum computing data with you." There was a long pause, and for a moment, Morrison thought they might refuse. Then the harmonic voice returned, carrying a note that hadn't been there before. "Hope. You would risk contamination to help us." Morrison looked around his bridge, at the determined faces of his crew. None showed fear, only resolution. In that moment, he felt a fierce pride in humanity's eternal drive to reach out, to help, to solve the impossible puzzle. "Where I come from," he replied, "we have a saying. The only failure is in not trying. We're willing to risk it if you are." The crystal ship's internal light pulsed in what might have been surprise or possibly amusement. "Your species is either very brave or very foolish. In our experience," Dr. Patel cut in, "those often turn out to be the same thing." As the Hawking's crew began the delicate process of establishing a secure data link with the alien vessels, Morrison reflected that this was humanity at its best, facing the unknown not with fear, but with determination and hope. The Selenary had searched the galaxy for centuries looking for a cure, only to find it in the most unlikely place, a species that embraced imperfection and turned it into strength. The quantum plague that ravaged their civilization might have been beyond human understanding, but that had never stopped humanity before. They would find a way. They always did. The holographic images that filled the Hawking's conference room told a story of paradise lost. The Selenary homeworld had been beautiful once, a gas giant's moon where crystal spires rose into perpetual aurora, powered by quantum reactors that drew energy from the very fabric of spacetime. But now those same images showed only ruins, the once gleaming crystal cities dulled and lifeless. Elder Lyra's harmonics resonated with deep sorrow as she shared her people's history. Her crystalline form shifted colors as she spoke, patches of darkness spreading and receding like clouds across her translucent body, a visual representation of the plague that afflicted her people. "We were masters of quantum mechanics," she explained to the assembled human scientists. "We learned to manipulate quantum states at a macroscopic level, to build technologies that your physics says should be impossible. We thought we understood everything about the quantum realm." Dr. Patel watched the data streaming across her pad as the elder spoke. The quantum plague was like nothing she'd ever seen, a cascade failure that propagated through both organic and technological systems, corrupting quantum states at the most fundamental level. It was elegant in its destructiveness and terrifying in its implications. "What happened?" she asked softly. "Pride happened." Lyra's harmonics turned bitter. "We discovered what we thought was a way to achieve perfect quantum coherence at a macro scale. Imagine it. Perfect quantum computers, perfect energy transmission, perfect everything. We didn't just want to manipulate quantum mechanics, we wanted to master it completely." Captain Morrison leaned forward. "But quantum mechanics doesn't work that way." "No," Lyra agreed, her color shifting to a deep blue of remembrance. "It doesn't. The universe demands its uncertainty, its chaos. When we tried to force perfect coherence, something broke. The quantum plague was born from our hubris. It spreads through any system that attempts to maintain quantum coherence, organic or technological. Our bodies, our ships, our cities. Everything we built was based on quantum coherence. Everything began to fail." Lieutenant Chen, who had been quietly analyzing the Selenary data, spoke up. "You said other civilizations tried to help. What happened?" "They failed." Lyra's harmonics carried centuries of disappointment. The Arxer tried to contain it with their probability fields. The Zentari attempted to cure it with their quantum purification protocols. The hegemony's best minds studied it for decades. All failed. Many became infected themselves, forcing us to flee further into the void. We became pariahs, carrying death wherever we went, until we chose exile in the darkest reaches of space. Dr. Patel pulled up a new set of readings on the main display. because they all approached it the same way you did, trying to achieve perfect quantum states to counter the plague. But look at this. The display showed a comparison between selenary quantum technology and human quantum computers. Where the selenary systems sought perfect coherence, human quantum computers were deliberately messy, working with quantum uncertainty rather than trying to eliminate it. We never tried to master quantum mechanics, Paddle explained, her excitement building. We learned to dance with it instead. Our quantum computers are crude by your standards, but they're resilient precisely because they don't try to maintain perfect coherence. They adapt to uncertainty instead of fighting it. Morrison watched understanding dawn in Lyra's shifting colors. You think this could be the key? Our primitive approach. More than that, Paddle continued. The plague spreads by corrupting perfectly coherent quantum states. But our systems, they're already corrupted by your standards. They're designed to work with quantum noise, not against it. It's like having a natural immunity. Lyra's form pulsed with rapid color changes, the selenary equivalent of rapid thought. But even if your systems are immune, how does this help cure the plague in our people, our technology? Because, Paddle said, pulling up another diagram, we might be able to use our noisy quantum systems to introduce controlled uncertainty into your quantum matrices. Instead of fighting the plague's corruption, we embrace it, guide it, turn it into something new. It's not about destroying the plague. It's about teaching your quantum systems to live with uncertainty, just like ours do. The human scientists and selenary delegates spent the next hours deep in discussion, comparing notes and theories. The humans' approach was radical by selenary standards. Deliberately introducing chaos into their perfectly ordered systems went against everything they believed in. But as they studied the human quantum computers, a new possibility began to emerge. It will mean rebuilding everything, Lyra said finally. Our entire civilization is built on quantum coherence. What you propose would change us at the most fundamental level. Morrison met her gaze steadily. Sometimes survival means being willing to change who we are. The question is, are you ready to let go of perfection to survive? Lyra's colors swirled in a complex pattern before settling into a steady, determined glow. We've spent centuries holding on to what we were, watching our people die for that pride. Perhaps it's time to learn a new way of being. As the meeting concluded, and the teams began preparing for their first attempts at implementing the human solution, Dr. Paddle found herself reflecting on the irony. The Selenari had spent centuries searching the galaxy for a civilization advanced enough to cure them, only to find their salvation in a species whose greatest strength was embracing their own limitations. Sometimes the most powerful solutions came not from achieving perfection, but from learning to work with imperfection. It was a lesson humanity had learned long ago, and now they had the chance to share it with a civilization that had nearly destroyed itself pursuing an impossible ideal. The makeshift laboratory aboard the Hawking hummed with activity as humans and Selenari worked side by side. What had once been the ship's cargo bay was now filled with a maze of quantum computing arrays, crystalline interfaces, and holographic displays. Dr. Maya Patel stood at the center of it all, her eyes fixed on the latest simulation results. The problem, she explained to Captain Morrison and Elder Lyra, isn't just introducing quantum noise into their systems. We need to find the right pattern of uncertainty, something that can spread through their quantum matrices the same way the plague does, but with a healing effect instead of a destructive one. The simulation showed the interaction between human quantum computers and a small sample of Selenari crystal technology. Each attempt to interface the two systems resulted in either rejection or catastrophic failure. The plague's corruption was proving harder to work with than they'd anticipated. It's like trying to teach a new dance to someone who's only ever marched in straight lines, Lieutenant Chen observed, watching the failed simulations. Her background in xenolinguistics had proved unexpectedly valuable in understanding the language of Selenari quantum systems. Perhaps, Elder Lyra's harmonics shifted thoughtfully, her crystalline form rippling with inspiration. We are still thinking too much like Selenari. We keep trying to control the process, to direct it with precision. What if we thought more human? Dr. Patel's eyes lit up. You mean embrace chaos theory? Instead of trying to design the perfect pattern of uncertainty, we let it evolve naturally. Chen finished, catching on. Like how human languages evolve through use rather than design. Morrison watched as the scientists quickly reconfigured their approach. Instead of trying to precisely engineer the quantum noise patterns, they set up a system that would allow the patterns to emerge through repeated interactions between human and Selenari technology. It was messy, unpredictable, and thoroughly human in its approach. Hours turned into days as they refined their method. The cargo bay became a testament to human improvisation. Jury-rigged equipment, hand-drawn diagrams on walls, and endless cups of coffee scattered among alien crystals. The Selenari watched in fascination as their human counterparts embraced what seemed like complete disorder, yet somehow maintained progress through it all. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of the junior engineers, Jessica Santos, had been tinkering with an old quantum encryption algorithm used in low-power communications. "Look at this," she called out one evening, her voice thick with exhaustion but excited. "The encryption key generation. It's almost like an immune system, constantly creating new patterns to adapt to attempts to break it." Dr. Patel rushed to Santos' station, her eyes widening as she studied the data. "It's perfect. Instead of trying to create one pattern of quantum noise, we create a system that generates endless variations. The plague can't adapt because the pattern is never the same twice. Like human antibodies," Morrison mused, constantly evolving to meet new threats. The team worked through the night, integrating Santos' discovery into their existing framework. They used the human quantum computers as a template, creating what amounted to an artificial immune system that could generate and distribute beneficial quantum noise patterns throughout Selenari systems. The first test on a small piece of infected Selenari technology was scheduled for the next morning. The cargo bay was crowded with observers, both human and Selenari. As Dr. Patel initiated the procedure, the crystal sample, dulled by the plague's corruption, sat in a containment field at the center of their jury-rigged apparatus. "Beginning quantum interface," Patel announced, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Introducing first-generation noise patterns." The crystal sample began to glow faintly as the human quantum systems interfaced with it. On the monitoring screens, they could see the plague's corruption patterns starting to shift and change as the new quantum antibodies began their work. "Pattern rejection in 3 sectors," Chen reported, "but adaptation is holding in sectors 7 through 12. The system is learning, adjusting the noise patterns in response to the rejection." For several tense minutes, they watched as human ingenuity battled against the quantum plague. The crystal's glow fluctuated, sometimes brightening, sometimes dimming, as their artificial immune system fought to establish itself. Then, gradually, the crystal began to clear. The dark, corrupted areas started to recede, replaced by healthy crystalline structure. But it wasn't returning to its original perfect state. Instead, it was becoming something new, a hybrid that incorporated both Selenari precision and human adaptability. "It's working." Elder Lyra's harmonics rang with joy and disbelief. "The plague. It's actually being transformed." Dr. Patel studied the readings carefully. "The crystal's quantum state is stabilizing, but not in the way we expected. Instead of returning to perfect coherence, it's established a new type of dynamic equilibrium. It's learned to dance with uncertainty, just like our systems do." The implications were enormous. They hadn't just found a way to cure the plague. They discovered an entirely new approach to quantum engineering, one that combined Selenari mastery with human flexibility. "We'll need to run more tests," Morrison cautioned. "Make sure the cure is stable and can be safely scaled up." But this, he smiled at the gathered team, human and Selenari alike. "This is what happens when we combine our strengths instead of trying to overcome our supposed weaknesses." As the team began preparing for larger-scale trials, Dr. Patel found herself reflecting on how this solution embodied everything that made humanity unique. They hadn't solved the problem through superior technology or knowledge, but through their willingness to embrace imperfection, to find strength in adaptation rather than perfection. The quantum plague had nearly destroyed one of the most advanced civilizations in known space, and its cure had come not from trying to master quantum mechanics, but from learning to accept its inherent uncertainty. It was a thoroughly human solution to an impossible problem. Time was running out for the Selenari. As the human-developed cure underwent final testing, 3 more of their crystal ships showed signs of critical containment failure. The quantum plague was accelerating, as if sensing the threat to its existence. "We can't wait any longer," Elder Lyra declared, her form flickering with urgency. "The plague is adapting faster than we anticipated. If we don't act now, we'll lose the Meridian and everyone aboard her." The Meridian was the largest of the Selenari vessels, housing over 3,000 of their people. Captain Morrison studied the risk assessments on his display. The cure's only been tested on small-scale systems. Attempting to treat an entire ship could either save them or kill them all instantly, Dr. Patel finished. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone in the command center. They had proven their solution worked on individual components and small systems, but scaling it up to treat an entire quantum-based ship was another matter entirely. Lieutenant Chen spoke up from her station. "What if we did it gradually, section by section, like a rolling blackout in reverse?" "No." Elder Lyra's harmonics were grim. "Our ship's quantum matrices are too interconnected. Once we begin the treatment, it must encompass the entire vessel." Dr. Santos, whose encryption algorithm had been key to their breakthrough, had been quiet until now. "Then we need to think bigger. Instead of trying to control the process completely, we set up resonance points throughout the ship. Let the cure propagate naturally, like a wave through water." Dr. Patel's eyes lit up with understanding. "Yes, we establish quantum entanglement nodes at key points. Let them act as amplifiers for the cure pattern. The ship's own quantum matrix would help distribute it." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. Human engineers worked alongside Selenari technicians, installing modified quantum computers throughout the Meridian. Each installation was a race against time, as the ship's deteriorating containment fields made the work increasingly dangerous. "Final node in place," Chen reported. "All systems showing ready." The Meridian had been evacuated except for essential personnel and a volunteer crew of both humans and Selenari, who would monitor the cure's propagation from within. Dr. Patel had insisted on being among them, despite Morrison's objections. Beginning quantum interface in 3, 2, 1. The massive ship's crystalline structure began to pulse with new patterns of light as the cure initiated. Through the Meridian's transparent hull, they could see the quantum noise patterns spreading like ripples in a pond, each wave carrying the human-designed antibodies deeper into the ship's systems. "First wave successful," Patel reported from her station aboard the Meridian. Quantum coherence levels dropping to planned parameters. Beginning second wave. That's when everything went wrong. "Containment failure in Section 7. Chen's voice cut through the tense silence. "The plague is accelerating, trying to fight back." The Meridian's lights flickered as 2 competing patterns, the plague's corruption and the human cure, battled for dominance throughout its quantum matrix. In some sections, the cure was taking hold, transforming corrupted systems into the new adaptive state they designed. In others, the plague seemed to be winning, its corruption spreading faster than ever. "We're losing containment across all sections," one of the Selenari technicians reported, their harmonics sharp with fear. "The quantum matrix is destabilizing." Dr. Patel's voice came through clear and determined. "No, look at the pattern. The plague isn't fighting the cure, it's trying to adapt to it. We need to push harder. Channel everything we've got through the primary nodes. That much quantum noise could tear the ship apart," Elder Lyra warned. "Or it could force the adaptation we want," Patel countered. "This is what humans do. We push past the safe limits when we have to. Captain Morrison felt the weight of thousands of lives in his decision. Do it. The quantum computers spun up to maximum output, pumping more chaos into the Meridian systems than any sane engineer would ever recommend. The ship's crystal structure groaned under the quantum stress, lighting up like a small sun as competing patterns of energy coursed through it. For 3 endless minutes, everyone watched as the massive vessel writhed in space, its form blurring as quantum states fluctuated wildly. Then, gradually, a new pattern began to emerge. The chaotic energy waves started to synchronize, not into the perfect coherence the selenary had once prized, but into something new, a dynamic, ever-shifting state that seemed to flow like liquid light. Quantum matrix restabilizing, Chen reported, her voice thick with relief. Plague corruption levels, dropping across all sectors. It's working. The Meridian's crystal structure had changed. Where before it had been rigid and geometrically perfect, now it flowed and shifted, its quantum states dancing in endless patterns of controlled chaos. It was beautiful in an entirely new way. Containment fields restored, Paddle reported. All systems functioning at new baseline. We did it. We actually did it. The cheers that erupted in both ships came in human and harmonic voices, blending into something that needed no translation. They had taken an impossible problem and solved it not through brute force or technological superiority, but through humanity's greatest strengths: adaptation, innovation, and the courage to push beyond assumed limits. As the celebration continued, Dr. Paddle studied the readings from the transformed ship. The cure hadn't just stopped the plague. It had transformed it into something beneficial, teaching the Selenary's quantum technology to thrive on the very chaos that had once threatened to destroy it. It was, she realized, a perfect metaphor for humanity's role in the galaxy. They weren't the most advanced civilization, but they had learned to turn adversity into advantage, to find strength in the very things other species saw as weaknesses. And now they had taught that lesson to one of the most ancient races in known space. 1 year after the cure of the Meridian, the Selenary fleet hung in orbit around Earth, their crystalline ships now flowing with ever-changing patterns of light that had become known as the quantum dance. The transformation of their civilization had been more complete than anyone had imagined. In the main auditorium of the United Earth Sciences Academy, Dr. Maya Patel stood before a mixed audience of humans and Selenary. The presentation behind her showed the latest data from their joint quantum engineering projects. The integration of Selenary quantum mastery with human adaptability has opened doors we never imagined, she explained. Our crude quantum computers and their perfect quantum matrices weren't opposites. They were complementary approaches waiting to be unified. The holographic display showed a new type of quantum computer, one that combined human-style controlled chaos with Selenary precision. The result was something entirely new: systems that could adapt and evolve while maintaining incredible processing power. But the implications go far beyond technology, Elder Lyra added, her form shimmering with the new dynamic patterns that all Selenary now displayed. Our entire civilization has been transformed. We who once sought perfect order now understand the strength that comes from embracing change. The Selenary had not simply survived the quantum plague, they had evolved beyond it. Their cities, once static crystal spires reaching for the stars, now flowed like liquid light. Their technology, rather than fighting against quantum uncertainty, used it as a source of endless innovation. Captain Morrison, recently promoted to admiral for his role in the First Contact, watched from the audience. He remembered the desperate crystalline ships they'd first encountered in the Kuiper Belt and marveled at how far both species had come. The quantum plague taught us humility, Lyra continued, but humanity taught us something far more valuable: that our greatest perceived weaknesses can become our greatest strengths. We sought to master quantum mechanics through perfect control, while humans learned to master it by surrendering control. Both approaches held part of the truth. The alliance between humans and Selenary had grown far beyond their initial cooperation. Human ships now carried selenary quantum engineers, while selenary vessels hosted human chaos theorists and quantum programmers. The exchange of knowledge and culture had enriched both species in unexpected ways. "We stand at the beginning of a new era," Dr. Patil announced. "The quantum plague forced us to question our fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality itself. In solving it, we've discovered principles that could revolutionize everything from computing to space travel to our understanding of consciousness itself." The presentation showed the first prototype of a new form of faster-than-light drive, one that used controlled quantum uncertainty to slide between the rigid structures of space-time. It was neither purely human nor purely selenary in design, but a true fusion of both approaches. In the reception that followed, Admiral Morrison found himself standing with Dr. Patil and Elder Lyra, watching Earth's sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "Did you ever imagine," he asked, "when we first detected those quantum readings in the Kuiper belt, that we'd end up here?" Patil smiled. "Honestly, I was just hoping we could help them survive. I never dreamed their crisis would lead to such a revolution in our understanding of the universe." "That," Lyra's harmonics rang with warmth, "is because you humans have a remarkable gift for turning disaster into discovery. Where we saw only entropy and decay, you saw an opportunity for evolution and growth." A group of young human and selenary scientists passed by, deep in discussion about quantum probability matrices and chaos pattern recognition. They moved seamlessly between mathematical theories and philosophical implications, each species' perspective enriching the other's understanding. "Look at them," Morrison nodded toward the group. "They don't see two species trying to work together. They see colleagues, friends, fellow explorers of the unknown." "That may be humanity's greatest gift to us," Lyra observed. "Not the cure itself, but the understanding that true strength comes not from perfection, but from diversity, from the willingness to embrace the unknown rather than fear it." As the sun set on Earth, its light caught the crystalline ships in orbit, making them shimmer like living rainbows against the darkening sky. They were no longer monuments to perfect order, but testament to the power of adaptation, to the beauty that comes from embracing change rather than fighting it. The quantum plague, born from the pursuit of perfection, had nearly destroyed one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Yet in seeking help from a younger, less advanced species, the selenary had found not just survival, but transformation. And humanity, in helping them, had gained access to technological and scientific understanding that might have taken them centuries to develop on their own. It was a lesson that would reshape both civilizations' approach to the cosmos, that the universe's greatest gifts often come not from mastering it, but from learning to dance with its chaos. In their separate ways, both species had been trying to understand the quantum nature of reality. Together, they had learned something far more valuable. That understanding comes not from control, but from collaboration, not from fighting the universe's inherent uncertainty, but from embracing it. And somewhere in the quantum dance of their new, shared technology, in the flowing patterns of light that now characterize selenary ships and cities, in the hybrid quantum computers that combine precision with chaos, there was a message for all spacefaring civilizations, that the path to the stars leads not through perfection, but through adaptation, not through dominance, but through harmony. The legacy of humanity's first contact with the selenary would echo through the centuries to come, a testament to what becomes possible when different species bring their unique strengths together, when ancient wisdom meets new perspectives, and when the courage to help overcomes the fear of the unknown.